Welcome to the Spectators Podcast. Here are your hosts, Corey and Jeb.
Welcome, spectators, to episode 4 of the Spectators Podcast. And to my mic adjacent is Corey. How are you today, Corey?
I am good, and that is episode 4 of season 2, right? So,
Yes.
I'm doing well. It's been a busy week for me personally, but it hasn't been the busiest weeks of sports. Not too much going on, but we're leading up to another premium live event with WWE and Clash of the Castle. How have you been
Crown Jewel.
lately? Cross,
I know.
oh my god,
I always screw those
Crown
two up.
Jewel, Crown Jewel. Yeah.
I am good. Yeah, I am feeling conflicted for sure, and we'll dive into why I'm feeling like that. Particularly around what we're going to be talking about today. But I did want to point out that it is November. I am growing my facial hair again, but it's not because I'm depressed about the Canucks. I am. That it's a month to recognize men's mental health.
Yep.
So Corey and I will be discussing a group that we want to highlight and maybe ask you to donate to. But it's a month to recognize that men struggle too with mental health, and it's important to talk about it. So I will attempt to get more close to what Corey has. Corey doesn't need to grow anything for November; he's already there. But I'm gonna give it a shot.
You can do it. You can do it. I mean, it's the thought that counts in this situation, and I think it's just the importance of bringing awareness to men's mental health, and everything. I will just not be shaving for the month. I'm not gonna.
Perfect.
I'm just gonna leave it as is. Maybe I won't even.
Joe Thornton beard.
I'll have the Joe Thornton beard, maybe, if it's acceptable.
I will come to your house and Nazem Kadri you and rip a chunk of your beard out. Anyways, so I think today we're mostly going to focus on Crown Jewel just because when it comes to WWE, it's the main focus right now. Friday is a taping. It's not going to be a live show because there will be in Saudi Arabia. But like I said, that's why I'm feeling conflicted. As much as I am excited for another premium live event under the Triple H regime.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's been a different one because there's 8 matches this time, plus Bray Wyatt, so 9 sort of segments of the premium live event. It is certainly, I know I'm not the only one who thinks about this, because I think since Vince signed this contract, which is a 10-year contract, I believe, right?
I think so.
It's like it's challenging, right? Because as we all know, Saudi Arabia doesn't have the greatest human rights record. And I'm not like, we don't want to make this political. We don't want to dive into all that, but
No.
I think it is hard. I think I'm not the only, like, looking at the WWE fans, they're excited for Crown Jewel, but it's a begrudgingly excited. They're like, we're looking forward to it, but I just kind of wish it wasn't in Saudi Arabia, right? And I mean, like, you only have 2 women's matches on the card, which if you look at some of the storylines in WWE, I imagine you could have more, but
for sure.
With the women's rights issues in the country, I can see someone like a Ronda Rousey saying no, which I can imagine that the Saudi prince wanted her because she's such a name, right? And I don't. Maybe she has gone in the past. I actually don't know. But
I don't recall, to be honest.
So I mean, she's usually someone that's pretty high profile, right? That would go. So I find it notable that she's there, right? For real reasons. I don't know if Sami Zayn's going to go. I believe he has Palestinian lineage. And I did read somewhere, or I heard somewhere, that he has opted out in the past. Same with Kevin Owens. I don't think Kevin Owens has that kind of history, but I know he said no. So WWE stars do say no, right? And they have to, they do have to bring in some different types of matches, right? I mean, like Omos match, right? Like Omos hadn't been on TV for weeks, right? And now all of a sudden
months, I'd say, yeah.
Now he's in a pay-per-view, right? So like, I don't want to belabor the point, and bring politics into it, but I think it's hard to ignore, right? That, it is a very discussed on our podcast on multiple times when we have these intersections of the outside world. And I mean, like, even this week, right?
Right.
That we thought that it might be canceled because Iran to attack Saudi Arabia, right? And that's a whole complicated soup that we're not going to get into because it's at
I
least in
believe it's
politics.
still on watch right now. There's a lot of security
There
going
is,
on.
right?
I
And
think there are some superstars that are already in Saudi Arabia, to what I've heard. So,
and
yeah.
flying in, right? I mean, I think Logan Paul's already there,
Yeah.
right? So like it's a challenging. It's one of those times where it's a challenge to be a fan of a sport when like we're also Canucks fans and we know that the owner has some pretty serious allegations of child abuse laid against him, right? And I just saw today that Dan Schneider, who's the owner of the Washington Generals, I think that's how they're put their name. Anyways, the football team, like he's probably gonna have to sell the team now because of what. Anyway, so like it does happen, and it's unfortunate when it's on a sport or a team that you really love, because it does dampen things, right? Like I think looks like it's going to be a good show. I think it'll be really well done, but there's some hesitation, right? Like I mean, I don't know. I'm curious to see what the ratings are going to be like for Crown Jewel because they haven't had it in a couple of years, obviously due to COVID.
That's right. They didn't
So
have it last year, but I think they had it in 2020. Maybe they did have it last year. I don't remember.
I can imagine COVID did affect it somehow,
They
right?
did. I do believe in 2020 they definitely didn't have it. It might have been 2021 that it started up again, but yeah,
Showed up.
there
That's
was
right.
definitely some effect, right? So,
So and the thing is too is I think the other controversy that folks just have a bit of a about is that the Crown Prince does just matches, which is I think a little on the nose and a little annoying because it just kind of looks like he's basically bought the pay-per-view, which is a little. I mean, like apparently he's the one who wanted Logan Paul. Then that's just rumors. Like that's not confirmed, but it would kind of make sense.
well, he's a
Right,
big
and
name,
why?
right? He was brought into the WWE for fan basis. If you think about it from a business standpoint, we've talked about this about other sports, right? You have to think about this from a perspective of a businessman too. And Logan Paul being such a big name, being in a place where Saudi Arabia wants to have a big show that sells out, who do you put on the card? You got to put on big names. You got to put on Roman. He's got
Right,
to be
like
there. You got to have Logan Paul there because he's going to draw people in, right? So it
Brock
does make
Lesnar,
sense
right?
to me, and same with Brock Lesnar. Like there again, you talked about Omos earlier, not being on TV for months. I could say the same about Brock Lesnar. Basically, since what SummerSlam, we haven't really seen him, right?
That's different circumstance though, right?
I don't think
Brock's
he
just on a
had.
part-time
Yeah, but he's on a
contract. That's
part-time
why.
contract. But I do believe we heard rumors for quite a while that Brock wasn't going to return until the new year. So there was obviously some sort of
Well, because day one got
communication
canceled.
back, and yeah, true.
Maybe that's why.
That's true, but there was probably some sort of stipulation of, hey, Brock, like, can you fit in? They wanted you on the Crown Jewel card, and then we saw this very seemingly random match that was put together right after Bobby Lashley seems to lose the title. So, I mean, it definitely was kind of fabricated to make it onto this card. There wasn't a lot of build up prior to this, but they're doing a good job, I think, building up now. So,
Well, I think it's also interesting too, and I don't know what the reasoning was too. Is that this is kind of the only one you really see for me, it's a conflict of like not conflict, but a challenge of the premium live events where you have this one on Saturday, and then in 3 weeks you have Survivor Series, which
right.
to my knowledge is actually quite a big, especially now with War Games, which everyone I think is about it is for Mania. The feeling I'm getting, of course, well, that's a bit much because there's Royal Rumble in there too. So, but it's up there, right? It's one of their
Yeah.
top pay-per-views, and you're only going to give yourself 3 weeks to build storylines for it, right? Which like hearing Paul, they had a conference call today because it was their quarter three earnings today.
Yeah.
And Paul Levesque was talking about or Triple H was talking about how they're thinking about the long game, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine it's a bit of a creative dance right now to plan for this for Crown Jewel and then also really quickly turn around and plan for a really big
Survivor Series.
Survivor Series, which again is a bigger one because they're doing War Games, right? That's a new version, right? I know that they did an NXT, but they've never done it on the main roster, right? It also makes sense because they don't really have much of a brand
That's what I was
strength
gonna
right
say.
now.
That's what I was gonna say.
Because Roman's got both top belts. You could easily do a Seth Rollins versus Gunther match, probably be pretty good. Lashley and Gunther would have been good too. And then it would Ronda versus Bianca, but you maybe think that Bianca will probably be involved in some sort of War Games thing because they don't have many women's factions right now. Anyways, my point is, I think Crown Jewel is a really interesting anomaly for me on the WWE schedule. And I would, if you sat, Paul Levesque down the record, I'd be curious to what he'd actually think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think to me, it just seems like a bit of a, this gimmick. Because, it just, card was booked a little bit. It seems to go against Paul's philosophies, right? Like he brings in Lesnar for a 3 week feud with Lashley. That just doesn't seem very, and it was a random attack on Lashley too, right? There was no story behind it, right?
No, that's what I meant.
Same Austin and Strowman, I guess there's a bit of a reason there, but there's just some matches booked that I think would sit well with Paul, but he has his hands are tied. The contract was signed before he became head of creative. So we'll see. But anyways, yeah. So it's an interesting landscape, I think, when it comes to the premium live events.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting take because you like you mentioned, a lot of these matches have only had what 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks to, apart from the Bailey and
See
Bianca.
and Judgment Day too, but that has AJ in it, so
yeah, there's some history there, but a lot of the matches are pretty relatively fresh and fresh feuds and stuff, which is great.
Paul and Roman too on top of that, right? So
right, and which I don't have a problem with because we do want some fresh feuds and stuff out there, but Crown Jewel is also an opportunity, I think, for them to bring back some names to just have some people not wrestle but show up and some returns. I know Triple H must have more returns on the way. You have to imagine
that's the thing. He's going to use this platform for something, right?
He's going to use the platform for something.
You got Bray coming back, and we won't go get ahead of ourselves. The card itself, but he's used every pay-per-view for something, right? I mean,
for sure.
I'm just trying to think. SummerSlam, you had the return of the Damage Control, basically. Just trying to think. It was SummerSlam, then it was Clash. You had Solo Sikoa show up, right? Big return, had huge consequences. Then you had the return of Bray Wyatt at Extreme Rules. So you got to wonder, right, where. What is he going to do with this premium live event?
What are the plans? Yeah, and one of the things I think about too is you've been planning the last few weeks for Crown Jewel. Normally you would be planning some of these things well ahead of time for Survivor Series. Now you've only got 2-3 weeks to really build up some good feuds from Crown Jewel into Survivor Series.
And you literally will have 3 weeks as of Saturday.
And that might cause some problems for believability too, right? You're talking about War Games. This is also a new scenario. We usually have brand versus brand, faction versus faction. And I'm sure they will have, some factions that will face off against each other. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Brawling Brutes versus, Imperium or something to kind of finally squash that feud, something like that, or maybe the New Day, maybe Big E returns soon or is in somebody's corner. I don't know, but I think that they do have options to work factions against factions. You could see a title versus title, IC versus US title. I would say Gunther versus Lashley would have been a good match, but also Seth versus Gunther could be a good match. But I feel like a Seth versus Ray would have been a really good match if that's the route that they're gonna go to, because they've had some good bangers in the past. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting because this is probably I want to say this is the first time I recall someone holding both the titles hostage and not having a main champion versus champion match. And
well, yeah, you got to think they'll move the bloodline because I was just trying to think today. I can't think of a time Solo has shown up where the bloodline has been in a match. You've had combinations of it, but you've never had because you had it at Bash with Roman, Jay, and Jimmy versus Bro and Drew McIntyre. So you had that faction, the three of them, but now you have five, right? So I think they'll obviously include the bloodline there. So I'm actually wondering if Roman's even going to defend a title at Survivor
I
Series.
don't think he
Anyways,
will. I don't think he will. I don't think it really makes sense for him to, unless they can somehow build another feud for him. But I feel like that would have to happen immediately at Crown Jewel. Something would have to happen at Crown Jewel for that happen.
To me,
If
it has to be
not,
Seth because of the anniversary of the Shield. But it just seems with
but it
him being
doesn't make
titled the
sense with
U.S.
him being a
title.
U.S. title holder. You can't. I
Well,
mean, yes, he.
wait, hold on. Didn't he hold both?
I was
the
just
top
about to say
belt?
yes.
Yeah.
He did hold the U.S. title and the Universal title, or maybe it was the WWE title. Regardless, he did hold those two belts at the same time.
They're heading back for that.
So that could be the route they go. I don't know. But I mean, like I said,
yeah.
you have limited time to really build a feud. So someone like Roman, it's got to be a good match. It's got to be compelling. You can't just throw Roman against anyone. Like it has to be somebody who's worth the challenge for him. But it also just can't be like, all right, we're gonna put him in another Brock match, or we're gonna put him in another, another Logan Paul match. The only thing I could see is like if Logan Paul manages to have a really, 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 really good like 5-star match against Roman at Crown Jewel, and they cheat to win, and Roman like gets disqualified or something in that and doesn't lose the belts, I could see them perhaps having Paul like gloat about it and then move on and say like I need a rematch at Survivor Series. That's the only possible way that they could do something. Otherwise it's got to be somebody fresh or somebody who he hasn't faced in a really long time.
I can see Paul being back in Rumble and being in the Rumble.
That's what I'm thinking, being in the
they're
Rumble.
talking about pushing it to 40. I was reading.
Oh really? It's always been 30.
40. Yeah, they're talking about pushing out to 40 because I think they want to bring in some NXT talent on top of that.
That makes sense. And they always have to have room for legends because it's always a fun part to see someone who's been out of the WWE for.
Imagine Edge will come back at that time too.
Edge will be in the Royal Rumble.
Orton too.
They've been saying a lot about Orton lately about his back not being healed, and he's way behind schedule apparently. So I don't know what that means for him, like going into next year. But yeah, but.
Anywho, well, let's focus on the
let's focus on what's going on now.
So conflicted by this, we want to talk about it, but yes, let's focus on Crown Jewel and what's ahead of us. So let's go through each match and discuss a little bit what our thoughts on it, and then we'll have a bit of a prediction of what we think will happen. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with some of the ones we don't really care about very much, and then move up to our most interesting, or you just kind of want to?
Pick a match. Surprise me, and we'll.
I'm gonna go from my least favorite to my most favorite.
Sure.
So I'm gonna go Omos versus Braun Strowman, which I actually have zero interest in who wins this match. I don't know how are you feeling about this match.
I'm a fan of Braun Strowman. I've liked Braun Strowman before he left WWE. Liked him as a Universal Champion. I think he's pretty decent on the mic at times. At times, not always. But he's compelling enough as a big guy. He has enough agility and skill set in the ring that he's believable. Omos, on the other hand, is the polar opposite of that, and he was put down to NXT for a reason. He was pulled off TV for a reason. His matches against Bobby Lashley, where Bobby Lashley had to carry him through the entire match. I still see that he's clunky. I honestly think it's going to be a terrible match. It's probably going to be like a 1 out of 5. Maybe
that's my feeling on it is 1 out of 5.
Braun is gonna carry him through the entire match. My curiosity is
Braun put him over.
Yeah, I feel like is Braun gonna put him over? Is he try to get him over? I would say that's the wrong choice. I say you gotta let Omos's contract run out. I don't think he's WWE talent. I don't think he's good enough to be on this roster.
Good at fighting jobbers.
Good, but that's fine. But but you know what I mean. So like, if you take Braun after really what he returned 4 weeks ago, and he's faced what he
Clash. So
he smashed that group. He smashed that group that was having that fatal 4-way tag champ match. He smashed Otis and he had a match against Chad Gable, but he hasn't really done anything much other than just kind of a few, like, I feel like matches to get the rust off. But
It's just these stupid handicap matches they do for
why would
both
you
of them.
bring him in? And apparently he's getting paid big bucks. Like, he's up there with like Roman right now. So if he's getting paid big bucks, why do you bring a guy in to basically be a jobber and lose to put Omos over? So I feel like inevitably Braun should win. He should win, but I have a weird gut feeling they're gonna make Omos win. I've heard enough MVP in the last couple of years. I mean, I think the guy's great on the mic, but I mean, he's just a mouthpiece at this point in his career, and you could put him with someone else who actually has talent. To be honest, like when he was with Lashley, but yeah. So I'm not really interested in this match. I hope Braun wins, but I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not in, like, if we
remotely interested.
sit down with you and watch this, I probably would make some food while this match was on and be like, oh, you'd be like, oh, come on. I'd be like, Corey, I don't care. And, to their credit, they tried. They did, they showed, like, really, this is match one of number 2 of 2 beefy men coming at each other and slapping around. Although the Lashley and I'm very actually looking forward to, but this one I am not. It's the like they both have had their clunky matches. Right? I think obviously Braun's got some understandable ring rust from not being in the ring for a while, right? Match doesn't surprise me in the least. This is a crown jewel to the T match, right? Yep. Where it's just like, 2 big guys. I don't really. Anyways,
you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of back in like I think it was the 80s. I'm too young. We're too young for this, but back in the 80s when they brought Andre the Giant on the scene, and really the guy was just like kind of like looked at as like a circus attraction almost. Like it was just the people wanted to see him because he was so big and he was just crazy, and they wanted to see people like Hulk Hogan, pick him up and throw him and things like that. And I feel like that's exactly this match. Like you think of like those guys back in the past, him, Giant Gonzalez, others, Big Show turned out to be a good giant, but typically a lot of the bigger guys, they're kind of just brought in for like.
Well, that's my hope. I think Braun will win. It makes most logical sense to me, right? Because like he's brought him in to bring him up, right? I don't think he's had a loss yet.
No.
And why would you make him lose to Omos, who again they took off TV, right? I mean, I don't know what you do with Omos after this, but I guess you literally. But that's pretty much
right before Braun left WWE, right before he got released by Vince, he was the Universal Champion. So you can't take that credibility away from him. He I believe he defended against the Fiend and then ended up losing to the Fiend.
He did, yeah.
And then that's when Roman came back, and then both of them ended up getting released that year. So I mean, to his credibility, he is a former multi-universal champion. You can't just bring him in and be like, all right, let's have him lose to a guy that's only beat jobbers. But
I just wish. I
digress.
Just with me with it, and we'll get into the Paul one. Obviously, I think we'll leave that one for last. But like, just wish he had more matches, like with credible wrestlers. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a good wrestler, regardless of your size, can wrestle with anyone. Like that's why Big Show was so good, right? Because he could fight the Takers and the Canes, and he could also do well with the Mysterios, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what I want to see. Because like that's my one criticism of Gunther is we haven't seen him go against Mysterio yet, but when he fought Ricochet, he was very clunky. He had a really hard time fighting against a high flyer.
I guess we'll see on Friday.
We will. Although you and I know who's going to win that one, but we'll keep that to ourselves. Anyways, again, yeah, like for me, we spent too much time on this match as it is, so I think Braun will win. For me, it's a 1 out of 5. I don't really care. Moving on. I see that's kind of the only one that I'm really not interested in. So I'll have you pick the next one. Which one do you want to talk about? Actually, so there's another one I'm not interested in. That's the McIntyre and Carey.
Yeah, let's get. That's what I was thinking. Let's get that one out of the way, but because I want to see. I want to hear your take on this before I give mine. I want to see what you think.
Well, I was into this feud.
Yeah.
Until they had that promo where Drew kicked the crap out of Cross. Like just and like they completely killed his credibility as a threat to McIntyre, right? And ever since then, like it's just, I feel like they like he just isn't credible to me, right? And he wins because of Scarlett, right? If you look at how they book this, McIntyre should destroy him because when McIntyre actually gets Cross on his own, like Cross is no match for him, which is so frustrating to me because when they brought him in, when they had that really cool promo where he attacked him and did the TikTok thing and all that, all that stuff, which TikTok is gone which seems to have gone by the way. So that's why I think I'm so I didn't see the strap match at Extreme Rules. I don't know how it went. It sounded like it was okay. Cross won, right? And you got to probably think McIntyre will win this one, so it'll be even, and then they can walk away. So, yeah, I'm annoyed by it because I think they had a real good chance to credible, but they ruined it for me when they had McIntyre just dominate him. And McIntyre is good. You want to you present Cross as someone credible to Roman, and he needs to be able to stand up to a guy like McIntyre who just lost to him. I know you're trying to protect McIntyre from tough loss at but like I don't know. I think McIntyre will win just to even the series, however you want to call it, and it sounds like H uses cage matches to end feuds, so hence why he's canceling Hell in a Cell. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on this match. How about you?
Okay, I'll give you the lowdown on how I feel about this Karrion Kross match and the whole Karrion Kross feeling right now. So, I was very surprised when Karrion Kross came back into the WWE. I now have my reason to believe Vince was correct when he let go of Karrion Kross. I feel like Karrion Kross is not WWE talent. I'm sorry to say it again, on another person.
He has the look. I think that's why everyone likes him. He has that look. He does look like a legit,
He does. But they're making the same type of mistakes. Like Triple H is making the same type of mistakes Vince did with him. Like he had a great NXT run, and I think that's why Triple H brought him back, because he's been bringing back all his NXT talent. Vince let him go because he had no credibility on the main roster. And we're seeing the same thing again. I think that, if they tried to do a different package for him than he was in the past, and that's what was more compelling to me when he first came in. But I was
so good. Like they were done really well.
But why do you have a guy come in, threaten Roman Reigns, completely ignore that you threatened Roman Reigns only weeks later, to now feud with the guy who just lost to Roman Reigns?
He threw a water bottle at him too.
Right? to then lose a match, to win a match against the guy who lost to Roman Reigns, but with help. But then you're like, okay, there's some credibility, right? Because he beat McIntyre, and McIntyre. So if he could beat McIntyre, he might have a chance to beat Roman. But again, he got help. He didn't do it on his own, and it was a different stipulation of a match. It wasn't a one-on-one. Like Roman doesn't usually do extra stipulations on his match typically. So I mean, there's been credibility that's been lost from different directions on Karrion Kross. I just don't believe in his character. I'm just not seeing it. And again, he got his butt kicked by McIntyre, and got hit by a car by McIntyre. Like there's no care in the world for this kind of. He looks like a B talent at this point. You look at him and you're like, he looks like a mid-card guy that's just kind of getting his.
He's getting unnecessarily elevated.
Yeah. He's getting pushed around. He's not getting elevated at all. So why you bring him in so quickly to have such a dramatic piece to then not? I feel like there was some idea to put him up and bring him up and have all this stuff, and then Triple H went and brought Bray and all these other Braun and all these other guys back, and then they're like, change of plans. We're not gonna be able to push you up.
And that's the thing that bothered me is this is the thing. I think Cross can actually be top tier, but clearly like he needs to wrestle more, right?
He
That's what
does.
bothered me. Like he had one match with Drew Gulak before Clash, and then he went in after McIntyre.
He went after
Like,
Jobber and he went after McIntyre. And how can you show credibility that way? It doesn't make sense.
or like just have McIntyre not completely beat the crap out of him the first time they interact. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like,
And then now if he beats McIntyre, right? If he beats McIntyre,
incredible. I don't think.
you're crushing McIntyre's like whole thing, and then unless the only way I could see that happening is if he injures or does something to McIntyre where McIntyre's out for a while and takes some time off, because he's been a workhorse. He hasn't had a lot of time
He
off
really
either.
he had a back issue before Clash.
He had a back
too.
issue before Clash, and he still did Clash. So the only way I could see it is if he takes some time off, and then you throw Cross into the picture. Then it kind of makes sense. The only other route is, does Cross potentially fit in with Bray? I don't really know. Now what I mean by like you look at Cross and he's not WWE talent. He's not bad. He's not a bad wrestler. His gimmick's not horrible. What I mean is he just doesn't fit the landscape
Pushed him
of
too
what's
quick.
going on. You push him too quick. Now throw him on AEW or something like that. I feel like he'd have a lot of credibility because, you know, he's got the look, he's got the skills, and he could fit into that roster where there's just too much going on in WWE with all these returns that it's really hard to believe.
More coming. So,
And there's
yeah.
more coming. So, you know, and there's still back burner. Like, you got to remember, there's still people like Cody on the back burner right now that are going to get a push. So we're in terms of that, it's just hard to believe what would happen next. I'm gonna say I want Drew to win because I think that if you have Cross win, it's gonna screw up Drew's trajectory forward unless he does plan to take time off. But my gut tells me Cross is gonna win this one. It's probably
Yes,
gonna be
I think it's McIntyre just to tie the feud because like it's what happened with Riddle and Seth, right?
yeah.
They tied and moved on. So we'll see. It's I mean I again not one that I'm really too interested in anyways. Okay, now you can pick one because now every other match I'm pretty interested in.
You know what? Let's pick the Bailey and Bianca match. I'm quite
That match or
interested
the
in this
tag match first?
actually. No, I want to talk about this match. Let's talk about this match. Um, I want to see what your take is on this because, like, I'm quite excited for this match. I think my ideas have really flip-flopped over the last few weeks of what's gone on, but I want to see what you think.
Or because it's tied to the tag matches, in my opinion.
It is.
I think whoever wins that, because they're going to do the tag match first, obviously. Whoever wins that tag match, will win. The leader of the groups will take the belt. So I actually do think Bailey will win this time. Just because if you look at juxtaposed to when she was headed to Extreme Rules and, you know, they took out all of Bianca's friends, which is Asuka and Bliss, it was looking very much like Damage Control because the Damage Control just won the tag belts.
Yep.
And then it was looking like very much like, yep, they're going to beat the living snot out of Bianca and win. Hence, Bianca beat the crap out of everybody.
Yeah,
everybody. And won. And, you know, I think there's some mixed feelings about that, right? I think some folks are getting a little tired of Bianca's reign. I'm not. I think Bianca is deservingly where she is. However, I do think it's either you give Damage Control the belts or you break them apart. Because if they lose, because like again, that tag match is probably the winner of this. It will show you the winner of this match, in my opinion. Like I think at the cost of Damage Control, I think Bailey will win, and I think it'll be something close to what actually we saw with Roman and Lesnar, because it's the last woman standing match. I think they'll probably beat the living snot out, eventually just beat the living snot out of Bianca and just throw a bunch of crap on her, and then she can't get up, right? And then I'm assuming the idea is you're going to continue this feud to War Games, right? And you're going to have a Bianca faction versus obviously Damage Control. Damage Control will need, of course, maybe a few more members. I think and I'm curious your thought on this. I think the big factor in this one is going to be Nikki Cross. Because you saw on Monday, Damage Control was trying to talk to her, a little bit, right? And Nikki just doesn't care about anybody and will kill everyone. So So I do think Bailey will win, and I think it's just to sort of preserve damage control, give them all the belts, and continue to feud with Bianca, and then eventually, I think Bianca will win the belt back because I believe the match they want at Mania is Bianca versus Charlotte. So we'll sort of see where that goes. But yeah, so I do think Bailey will definitely win the match.
I agree. I think Bailey definitely wins the match. I also want Bailey to win the match. Um, I like the Damage Control faction. I like that they're
Yeah.
like a legitimate faction. I think that Asuka, Alexa are great, but they're kind of just thrown together. I don't buy it as much. That whole idea of that
It's
faction.
yeah, and like it doesn't seem like they're. I don't know. Alexa doesn't really seem invested in it. I don't know if we
I
can
saw
move over
post
to.
interviews too, and she seems a little like off. Like she's
Yeah,
she should be sitting in the top tier card. I don't know why she's, and same with Asuka. So I don't know why they're kind of getting thrown there. But that's besides the point. That's off on a tangent. The reason why I'm really conflicted on this one is because over the few weeks, like I keep looking at how the tag match will conflict with or you know parallel with
Mm.
the title, the main title match. And I'm like, oh, like at first I was like, one faction's gonna hold all the titles, and then the other faction's gonna not have anything, or you're gonna
Hmm.
have, and then I flip to one's gonna hold the tag team and one's gonna hold the main title. And like, I even when it was very surprising to see Asuka and Alexa return on Monday and then win the belts out of
Together.
nowhere together.
Yeah,
I
return together.
never
Yeah.
thought, I didn't see that coming from a mile away. Great
It's
on
kind of funny
Triple
how
H.
like we started talking about the main women's belt, but the tag belts are attached to this. If you know,
They
but kind of
are.
you kind of have to predict both at the same time because like they're very interconnected. Because even at the end of Raw on Monday, like Bianca and Asuka and Alexa were all standing together with the belts.
Yeah,
The faction had all the gold, right? So you got to
exactly.
think that's a similar theme heading to Crown. Um, so I think really when we predict this match, we're kind of predicting the tag match too at the
Yeah,
same
so
time.
so so when I was thinking about this, right, I was like, oh, now that it flipped and we went over to Asuka and Alexa having the belts, I'm like, well, then for sure Bailey's gonna win the title. Like it only makes sense because they're not gonna hold all three belts. That was my thought in the beginning. I was like, it keeps flipping. They're not gonna do this. But then now I'm thinking, I'm like, well, if they don't have damage control win, let's say, God forbid they don't have them win anything. I think that just squashes damage control right there. Like if you don't have them win
Problem.
anything,
Yeah.
then everyone will look at it as it was too big. It was too big and too quick of a push, and it's gonna just throw them right down the roster.
War games too, right? I think this is
Yeah,
one of these things that end like usually these things end at a pay-per-view, these kind of
yeah.
storylines, but they won't.
It
Like it's
won't.
gonna
It won't.
because you've also got Candice LeRae in the background
You
too,
do.
who's in the face faction. Then of course you have Nikki Cross, who
Could go either
you
way.
yeah, it could. I don't think she'll be a face. I think she's either she'll go with damage control or she'll just kill everyone.
She'll just,
Um,
yeah, which is typical Nikki Cross when she was in NXT. This whole Nikki ASH stuff that was in the main roster that Vince put together was garbage. I'm glad that Triple H squashed that. Nikki was a previous champion as well, so I could see her trying to go for the title again. But there's so much talent on Raw that they need to flip things around
well,
and
and she
give some
lost
other
to
people
Bianca
some
too,
titles. Yeah,
so
she did.
it ruins her chances. But I
But
think for me, I think go ahead.
I was gonna say, but yeah, I definitely could. I definitely believe that they're all going to win. Like
Mm.
Damage Control is going to win everything because I think I'm kind of with a lot of the fans on Bianca, her reign being a little long. Um, I think she's a great champion. Don't get me wrong, I do. I think she's doing a fantastic job. I think she's great on the mic, and I think she's so talented in the ring. The only problem is she's getting a little stale as a face,
She
and
needs to be humbled a bit. Like she needs to
sh
lose it and have some sort of like
kind of like what happened to her with
conflict.
Becky. Like she lost the title in
Mm.
26 seconds and it really boosted her career up after that. I think she needs to lose the title, and knowing Bailey, like just from her past, like if she wins the title, this is going to be a long reign. This is not going to be something that's going to be quick. It's going to be a long
End at
reign.
Rumble. I think it'll end at Rumble. But anyways, continue.
But I do agree with the idea of, because you said Charlotte and Bianca, right? But I don't see Bailey winning the title to lose it at Rumble. I feel like it's too close, because I think that's gonna really put them to have a really dominant women's faction. If you have her lose right away,
Yeah.
you kind of squash it. What I could see is I've heard there's potential about Charlotte returning at Crown Jewel or soon after. I think that may be your starting point of building a feud between Bianca and Charlotte, whether that's a title feud or not.
Well, it has to be a title, you think?
At some point, yes, at some point, for sure. And that could go on Raw or SmackDown. I don't really know what direction that would go in the long term. I wish it would go on SmackDown, because I'm really tired of Ronda as the champion.
Yeah, but we can't have Charlotte and Ronda again.
But we can't have but we could have a Charlotte and Bianca match. That I would be okay with that, and then Bianca winning.
Yeah, it sounds like Becky's heading to SmackDown at some point, because they want Becky to face Ronda.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a Damage Control takes everything, just to keep building their faction and really solidify, because I don't think there's ever been a women's faction that's been so dominant. So I think if they can do that and they can create some dominance, like their bloodline, their version of the bloodline almost, I think.
I think it's annoying, because like this Damage Control win, I think, comes at the cost of Alexa and Asuka. Like, I'm very irritated that, like, they I think the plan all along was to have Becky with Bianca, right? And they would feud with Damage Control, and who knows who'd be that third member, right? But of course Becky got injured. So, like, there's just always been this feeling that, like, Alexa and Asuka have been this filler. And, like, I mean, at one point they called them Bianca and Friends. Like, that's just not great for
that's just trashing two main roster talents,
stars, right? So that they come back from injury all of a sudden, and like it's just like also like the annoyance of the women's tag belts, like Sasha and Naomi left because they felt they were disrespecting the tag belts. I respect that H brought it back, but it just, they don't have the women's division figured out yet, so they did bring them back, but like this, you can still see the tag belts aren't, because like no one's walking in from injury and challenging the Usos for their belts, right? Like the Brutes are gonna challenge, yes, but like there's been a long feud with them, and
it's not like the Vikings are gonna come back and challenge them right away and win. No,
exactly, right? So it's just I'm really hoping, it does sound like 2023 H is gonna focus more on women and the return and things like that. So you might get that, and I get the pressure to bring back the women's tag titles because of what happened with Sasha and Naomi. It's just a bit of an annoyance for me on that one, but anyways,
I agree.
We shall move on.
So we kind of covered two matches there.
They're interlinked. Like it's hard to just talk about one, because again, like you'll probably see the tag match go first out of the two, obviously, and then whoever wins that one, you're probably going to see either of that win the other one, right?
Yeah.
Or do you want to leave Bray for after we talk about the matches?
Why don't we go WWE fashion and leave Bray till last?
Perfect. Okay, let's go with the OC versus Judgment Day.
So this is an interesting one for me. I mean,
me too.
OC just returning. They've been kind of screwed over from Rhea, really, over the last couple of weeks. It's really been her. She's been kind of that kryptonite to them. I could see if Rhea wasn't involved, if Rhea was off to the side, OC and AJ easily beat the Judgment Day without Rhea there.
But who are they going to bring in to be because they've mentioned how do you solve the Rhea problem? So I think everyone's real big question is who is returning,
the
or
original
who is going to
thought
join.
Made the most sense to me was Beth Phoenix, right? You thought of Edge's wife being there, but Edge is out of the picture now. So, and clearly
It's still got a pretty big beef against Rhea. So Beth is not a bad idea.
No, but I do believe Beth is quote unquote injured. Like I think she's out of the picture right now.
Yes, she's got a kayfabe, right.
A kayfabe injury, right? I think she definitely is out of the picture for now. I have heard rumblings about this is your time to bring back Charlotte Flair, and the reason why I don't like, but the reason
seems odd to throw her in there.
It does, but the reason why I'm hearing is because that's what Saudi Arabia wants. She's a big name. She's the most she's won the most titles ever.
History with Rhea?
She doesn't. Oh wait, maybe she does. She might have lost her title to Rhea at one point, from what I remember.
Okay.
So there may be some sort of history there, but
right?
it's well in the back. But
I think it's Nikki Cross, but anyways, go ahead.
if you bring back Charlotte and put her with the OC and AJ, that puts her as a face. We haven't seen a face Charlotte. We haven't seen a face Charlotte in a very long time. Years. I probably haven't seen Charlotte as a face since like 2014.
Oh, does that mean Bianca would go heel? That'd be
so
interesting.
either Bianca goes heel, or I mean, because, and I hate to say this, but like, if somehow she faces Ronda again, because Ronda's a heel now, maybe she's face, but it doesn't make sense, because if you bring her back to go with them, she has to be on Raw. So I would say there is some validity there, because putting her on Raw gives a twist for Charlotte. She's been on SmackDown for so long too, like, and she's feuded with, you know, the talent there, that I think it would be nice to see her feud with like Bayley and Bianca and Alexa and all of them, and she needs to work her way back up. I feel like she's been out of the roster for so long.
Well, it would make sense if the plan is to send Becky over to SmackDown.
I agree, too. and like Charlotte and like Asuka have had some like 10 out of 10 matches in the past, like fantastic matches in the past. So like I would see them building her up, like kind of trailing through the women's division and then potentially pushing up to.
And the Charlotte Rhea match would be pretty good.
Charlotte Rhea match would be fantastic. See, Rhea's still there. Like, she's still that contender that we're waiting for her to get a title shot. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but like, and like, if you do put Charlotte to help the OC, do you have her there fully while she's feuding with Judgment Day, or do you just have this as a one-off thing? That's the curiosity I have too. She could feud with them, and she's never worked in a faction like that before, so maybe
I think it'd be cool. It would be kind of cool, I think. But
I think it'd be interesting.
It'd be interesting to put such a big, because like I haven't seen ever Charlotte, like to my knowledge, Charlotte's up there with Ron, like, and sort of like notoriety in WWE.
I think Charlotte's like the GOAT in the women's division. Like, I think she's just has so much notoriety right now.
Interesting to see her in like a faction like that where she's the only woman. That'd be really interesting. Like, and maybe it's a new role for her. It might be nice because all she's been doing is feuding with Ronda, so she might enjoy the change.
She might have been bored because all she did was feud with Ronda, and before that, all she did was feud with Becky. So I mean, really, so like, it might be something different. I don't.
But anyways, I think Judgment Day will win because I think
so too.
They are pushing them like crazy.
As AJ said, I hope that he beats the piss out of Dominic Mysterio. I don't know how I feel about this whole Dominic Mysterio thing. I really like the relationship between Dom and Rhea right now. Like, what they're doing together, like it's very maniacal. It's really interesting. It really I know there's been a lot of talk about this, but when people talk about this, I really do see like Dominic as Eddie Guerrero and Rhea as like Chyna back in the 90s, like when they were kind of that relationship. Like it was really interesting. I've heard like Dominic's gonna come out and like renounce his like heritage, like not his heritage, his Mysterio name, and then they're gonna like tie back to like the feud where like Eddie and Ray had many years ago, where it was like who's the actual father, and then he's gonna come out and say like they lied, like all along I was Eddie's son, and like I'm actually Dominic Guerrero, and then you're gonna see a new like if that happens, I mean,
so heel.
It would be so heel. He's doing a good job with like being a heel. Like, he's got heat, man. He's got heat that we haven't seen people have for a long time.
It was a necessary thing to split them up, right?
I
think now both of them are going to flourish, right? Even if Ray's unsuccessful against Gunther, I think he'll be nice.
We have to be leading to a Ray versus Dominic match.
That's a Mania match for sure, and I don't know if
Ray
that's a retirement match
versus Dominic Guerrero. That's the match we're gonna see.
Anyways, so Judgment Day wins that one, and
I agree.
We'll move on. So what do we got left here? Okay, we'll keep the Usos and Roman. We'll keep the Bloodline for last. So let's go to Lashley and Lesnar.
This one's a quick one for me. Lashley wins this match. I think that like Brock is so credible. Brock easily could smash anyone in the WWE, but with him being part-time, with the way things have gone lately, how do you have him lose to Roman again and again and again? And then what's the point of him beating Lashley? Like, I don't see any logical point to him beating Lashley, because Lashley's kind of on the up and Lesnar's kind of been plateauing. If you have him beat Lashley, again, it's another one of those credibility conversations. You're starting to throw Lashley down the roster, but we want to get him pushed up to maybe face Roman or whoever the title holder is at one point. I think Bobby Lashley's going to be he's going to win another title in his career, and I think you're going to put him at a bad spot if you have him lose. The only problem is, if you have Lesnar lose again, what's the point of having Lesnar in WWE?
Yeah, but he's so over though. Like he can, you know what I mean?
He can lose, and he can. So,
Like he got everything thrown. I mean, he's like he lost to Roman, yes, but like he lost in such a spectacular.
But really,
fashion.
he won in reality, right?
He would have easily beat Roman if not for the bloodline. Right?
I'm at a little bit of a loss for this match because I didn't expect to see it coming. I don't know, and they're both such brutes. Like they're like alpha male specimens. Like they could easily beat each other. It's credible.
It makes me sad that Pat McAfee's not going to be doing the commentary on that one.
I know. Oh my god. But I mean, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go with my gut. I think Lashley wins this one. I think Brock can take the loss because fans love Brock.
I was thinking Lesnar, but your logic actually makes quite a lot of sense. So I think I'll also go Lashley as well. All right, let's get to the bloodline. We'll go to the tag belts first. Brawling Brutes versus the Usos for the Disputed Tag Team Championship.
I feel like sometimes we go into a bit of a ditch when we talk about the Usos and their tag matches. So I'm gonna try to keep this one as quick as possible. I don't have much expectation with this match. I feel like it's gonna
be a good match, actually.
It's gonna be a good match, but I don't have much expectation for like Usos losing or anything happening that way. I think, the Brutes they're getting a push, and so like Sheamus, the Brutes, they've all been getting a push lately. So I think that they'll have a really good match. They'll shine in this match. The only thing I'll say about this is Usos will win. I think Usos will win, but I think the Usos will win at a cost. And there will be something Jay related that will really hinder the bloodline. Now it could go two ways. It's either Jay messes up and he really kind of gets disregarded by the bloodline, like he really kind of gets disowned by them or close to it, or they blame it on Sami and then Sami ends up turning on the bloodline. But I just don't feel like they're ready to push Sami out. So
be a DQ finish. I just thought about that. Now you talk about DQ with Logan. It could be another DQ finish. They screw up and then whatever. I mean, because how Solo gets really mad and takes a chair. Like maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
Be there. He's now married. Could you imagine getting injured so you can go get married? Yeah, I mean this is a quick one. Same with the Roman and that would be a quick one too. Yeah, they're gonna win. And we mentioned this last episode too. It'll come at a cost to the bloodline. It'll be another
It'll build the story of this issue.
The crumble. It'll build the crumble. It'll be some sort of mess up, probably from Jay, because that's what we're seeing.
I'd like to see. I don't know about you. But I'd like to get your perspective on this. I'd like to see Sami stay and Jay get booted out. That'd be my idea.
That's a very tasty idea. I just think the WWE, which I told you has the reports are that they actually did come in and Sami was going to get booted out and they were going to tag, but because Sami with the bloodline has been so over with the crowd, stayed. And that could be a possibility, right? That could be a possibility. It's looking like Jay is turning back into the guy that Roman had to put in line, right? Like he literally said on Friday that he doesn't give a damn what Roman says. He's never said that before. So it's possible. So I think this is another one. I think for me it goes Usos win at a cost, and then they lose. Roman wins. That one's not a guess. Everyone knows Roman's gonna win.
Oh, for sure, Roman's gonna win.
We won't spend much time on that match.
But Roman may also win with Jay as a mess up. Now, if you imagine Jay does something both ways, like he messes up somehow in the tag match, DQ, whatever, and they blame it on him, and then he's out there with Roman's match, and he does something to get Roman disqualified or something. Let's say he gets Roman disqualified, because remember, he's really mad that Paul knocked him out, right? He's really like upset and embarrassed and mad about that.
Yeah.
So I could see him getting something, like Paul might say something to him like, come over here and I'll knock you out again, and then Jay just loses it, goes into frustration, and then just like tries to take out Paul on his own without listening to Roman. So it taints Roman's record, because he'll get a loss on his record, but it'll be a
Roman
DQ.
We'll obviously let's move into Roman versus Logan Paul. And Roman's been really angry that, like, this guy's a chump. I'm gonna kick the crap out of him. If he gets disqualified, that's really gonna upset Roman, because he didn't get to beat this guy that he has not seen as at his level, which it's not. So yeah, Usos a win. We both agree on that one. Moving to the main event, will win. Like,
Undeniably.
That's pretty clear.
Here's a question for you. Here's something that I think of that everyone's kind of wondering, I think. Does Logan Paul get that shot on Roman? Does he get a punch on Roman? Does he knock him out for a little bit?
Maybe it's on Sami, but no, I think he will get the shot in. But it'll be some sort of like the Usos looking up on the road. Like, there'll be a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
I think the DQ will come after that. I think I didn't think about a DQ until you brought it up, but I think it's a really good. Like, Roman's had to deal with the conflict of Jay and Sami at arm's length, right? And then they addressed it a little bit a couple weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm. Infamous promo last Friday. Sorry, not a couple weeks ago. Like, but this time it's going to cost him, to cause a problem with the bloodline, and I think it's going to, moving feuds further, whoever they face at, I don't really know who the bloodline's going to face at War Games, but that's going to move into War Games, and they will all, the bloodline as a unit will lose, right? Then there'll be no belts on the line, obviously, right? And that's going to look towards Rumble, which I think we'll see. Was my theory that Roman would lose a belt at Survivor Series, but I'm more thinking they're going to focus on this bloodline story, and them losing and just further the crumble of it. So
there is a lot of fan speculation out there that the New Day will somehow get involved with this match, like the Usos match,
because they don't want the Usos
to kind of protect their own legacy. I just don't see it. I personally I don't see it as I don't buy it.
I mean, it'd be something fun, right? That would be very showy for the crowd. But I more see the New Day getting involved after Crown, because
I think so too.
After that would be the last chance for the New Day to stop the Usos from breaking their record. And then I think at Rumble you see the Usos lose their belts, and you see Roman drop a belt, not both, but one. Who I don't know. Maybe it is Rollins. I don't know, because that would make sense, because that was the last time Roman and Rollins, because Rollins still has the U.S. title. Who knows if Lashley will go after him? He beats Lesnar.
It actually makes a lot of sense, because if you think about how we talked about the contract stipulation for the Money in the Bank is to win one belt of your choosing, but in this case we kept thinking it would be for both. But the Royal Rumble has always notoriously been you win the Royal Rumble and you have the choosing of which belt you want. So I could see that, say whoever wins the Royal Rumble says, I want the Raw belt. Whether that's the Universal or the WWE, they could just make the Universal Championship red again, put it on Raw. It doesn't really matter. But one of the belts I think could be challenged for, and then you're right, could be lost at some point. I honestly don't have any speculation at this point who it could be. It could be many different people, but we'll have to see how these next two pay-per-views pull out. But I could see that happening, and then whatever belt they choose ends up going to Raw, and Roman still has the whatever.
And then that's where you bring in The Rock and the Universal title match at WrestleMania. Anyways, let's finish with Bray. So Bray's going to show up as well. I'm curious where they're going to put him in the show. But what do we think is going to happen with our friend Bray?
I don't know if I've ever seen a pay-per-view end with a promo, but I could see
At the
WWE.
end?
Yeah, like at the end, like that. I don't think I've ever seen that because you usually see it end with a big match, like a big main
Well,
event
they did it in
match.
Extreme Rules, right? That's where they revealed.
But I was gonna say because of that, I'm wondering if Bray cuts a promo and we see another return or two. The reason why
Do you open it with Bray? Maybe.
I feel like you could, but
It
for some
feels like
reason,
too big.
but I feel like there's for some reason we're gonna see a big return, like big returns, and it might be multiple returns because I think Bray might start bringing out who's gonna be part of this faction with him.
Oh, I wonder if they'll reveal who Uncle Howdy
They
is.
will. They'll review. I'm calling it right now. I told you that masked
Bo.
man. It's Bo. It's gonna be
They
his
said
brother.
that he was wearing an earring that Bo Dallas wore.
Yeah.
Was it a cross or something?
If you pause the Uncle Howdy and look at Bo and look at the earring and look at the shape of the head and everything, that it's Bo. The voice too. It makes sense. It's Bo. I think it just makes sense, and I'm so excited for it because that means that Bo will actually be getting a push in WWE that he's never gotten before, and you have a true, like, you know, you have the Usos who are brothers, and you've had brothers in the past, but you got another faction with brothers that are together, and I think that's going to be really meaningful to Bray and Bo, and I think it's going to be a big. It's gonna be a big reveal. I'm assuming it's gonna be Bo, but I'm also hearing that there are speculations that it may be multiple people. There may be multiple returns in this case. It may even be the entire faction. I don't know.
Do you think they'll do the entire fact? Because they keep when Liv's going crazy, they keep showing his butterfly thing in the background.
They do, and there's been what was it? I think my partner showed it to me today. She said there was some sort of thing where Liv was tied to the Sister Abigail doll in the background of something. So she may be like kind of like the Sister Abigail of the group somehow. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling like what might happen is they'll have Bray in the middle of the ring doing his promo. They may have somebody pop up on the Titantron behind him, and then where we would usually see the WWE have that fashion of just ending things and the butterfly coming up, we may actually see the butterfly pop up and then go to a black screen, and then the lights all come on, and the faction is circling Bray.
That'd be cool.
Bray no mask, but the faction is circling Bray, and then one of them hands Bray the mask, and he puts it on, and then they all are wearing the mask to kind of show that that's their faction.
Cool.
I don't know. I told you I should book for WWE.
Anyways, I think we'll end there. So that is the card for Crown Jewel, and I think you and I are conflictedly looking forward to it. Be watching. I can't bring myself to to watch it, but I certainly will be watching the highlights and things like that to make sure up to date on it. But So as I forgot to mention on top, we have the Spectators podcast. So please subscribe on YouTube, leave us a thumbs up, leave us a review, and follow on our audio channels, which is Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And as I always say, my beautifully bearded friend, thanks for chatting with me.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody. And we'll catch you at the next one.